now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So the journey continues, folks, on the political scene. Remember, November 4th is an extremely, extremely important day, and I don't care who you vote for, but make sure you go out and vote. Folks, you're seeing what's happening in this country today because people tell you who to vote for. Learn the facts about everyone, and whether they're a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't make any difference. I know some people get upset when I talk about different things, and they have their own agendas. There's some Republicans, you'll never get them to vote for a Democrat. There's some Democrats, you'll never get them to vote for a Republican. Sad. It's very sad. The old school was that way, folks. But if you think because you're a Democrat, things are right. If you think you're a Republican, things are right, wrong. Vote for the most qualified candidate you can by learning about him. And we're on a journey here with Dr. Moylan. Dr. Moylan's running in the 17th Congressional District. He's a Republican candidate. He's Republican, but certainly it's open to anybody. And what Dr. Moylan's doing through the sponsorships of shows is trying to inform you as to some things that you should be concerned about. His opponent, Matt Cartwright, how he voted, what he has done, versus what Doc Moylan would do. So, Doc, once again, welcome on the Sam Lesante Show.
Sam, always a pleasure. Thank you.
The last show, we talked about some bills, okay? And we didn't get enough time to complete that. So why don't you recap for us what was discussed in the last thing?
Well, there were two women's health bills that have come before Congress about a week and a half ago. There was some voting on it. And one was the Women's Health Protection Act of 2013. That was introduced by Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut. And basically what that was going to do is strip away all provisions for life that have been earned over the last 41 years. And it would inactivate some 200 state and local bills to protect human life. And as I said in the last show, I would like to call upon our congressman, my congressman, Matthew Cartwright, to join me in repudiating that bill. The other one that didn't get very far was introduced by Patty Murray, who's an ardent abortion promoter. It was called the Protect Women's Health from Corporate Interference. It would basically overturn the Hobby Lobby decision by the Supreme Court. So far that's stalled in the Senate, but these are two important issues that, again, I am running as the pro-life candidate. But your show, or your production company, with the ability to monitor, look at these shows again, I think that's invaluable. But I was reviewing one of our earlier pro-life shows, and people can write in and comment on it. And one of the commentary was that Moylan, I'll never vote for him. He's anti-choice. Of course, they described you as being rabid with your enthusiasm for the human condition. But Sam, this is basically something that we learned in our youth, the facts of life.
Yeah, it's amazing how I get some real nasty emails because I stand for protecting the unborn child. But the serious problem additional problem is seniors. The seniors who are in their 70s and 80s, okay, when they are no value to society, you're going to be seeing euthanasia. That's what I'm predicting. Because if you have no regard right now for the unborn baby, and that heartbeat starts at 21 days, etc., and anyone who says you could pull the little arms out, squash their heads, people don't want to hear that. But that's what they do, okay? And seniors should be very much concerned about who is pro-life, because they're going to be affected. So yeah, I know, and that's the only agenda I ever have on this show is I'm pro-life. Yeah. You have
I'm making bones about it.
Yeah, I don't make any bones about it, and I would welcome any Planned Parenthood. Come on, tell me why you think you should kill these little babies, okay? And if they camouflage it with women's health care. See, I have a friend of mine who is an avid liberal Democrat who says, I don't think they should mess around with women's health care. That's right, they shouldn't, but that has not health care. That's what happens.
Sam, going back to the facts of life.
Yeah, what are the facts of life?
The main fact of life is that when a man and a woman have certain relationships, when they love each other, chances are there's going to be a baby produced. That's a fact of life. And I am actually pro-choice.
Sure. So
I'm pro-choice that you make the decision
Before you
you get in the back seat of the Buick.
that's what I said. I'm pro-choice before you have sex. But anyway, let's not hammer on that. The point is that right now you have you're running against Cartwright. Here's a guy that has close to almost $750,000 in his war chest, according to what I read in the Standard Speaker, and you have a couple $100. Whatever you did, you spend it. But you said something was very interesting, is that this is not an auction, is it?
It definitely is not, and money doesn't vote, people vote. And I have a grassroots movement, and fortunately, the people are responding, a little 25 here, 50 here, and it's starting to add up. So I am not discouraged, and I'm going to soldier on to November 4th.
What else do you want to discuss?
Well, the other thing was we're talking about climate change.
Yes.
That was the results of a conference that I had attended in July. And again, there was a lot of material there, and we didn't get a chance to cover it adequately. I wonder if we could switch gears and go over to some of the slides.
Yep.
And again, all these experts that I spoke to, they said, yes, the climate is changing. But is it man-made or anthropogenic, or is it nature? And of course, I pointed out that the thermometer was invented by Galileo in 1593. But so before the Industrial Revolution, we didn't have any accurate way of gauging temperature. But one thing that it was known is there was a medieval warming period, and Greenland was not covered with a glacier at that time. It was green. So perhaps we're going through a cycle here that has nothing to do with man. And we also pointed out that the radiation from the sunlight, that's what's really warming the planet. And temperature changes in other planets have been documented also in the last 50 years. And again, it's a particularly active phase of solar activity. And that probably overwhelms any effect from the carbon dioxide. Maybe we can check another thing. Again, the carbon dioxide, that's something you can measure pretty accurately. And going back from 1960, yeah, it's gone up from maybe 315 parts per million to about 390 or so. But again, what is the degree of the effect contributing to global warming or temperature or climate change? It's probably small, and most experts would say that the change in temperature over the last century has been about 1 degree Fahrenheit. So again, this is not a terrible problem that should alter what we're doing with our energy policy. So could we maybe look at what our options are? This is, again, as Al Gore said, an inconvenient truth. The reality on the lower right-hand side, that's what the temperatures have been for the last 17 years, and they're not fitting the computer models, which would show it skyrocketing. Next slide. Again, shows the measurement. There's variability, but on the average, the global temperature has not changed in the last 17 years, 10 months, and counting. Slide. And again, how does this help us shape a national energy policy with particular emphasis on the 17th district here in Pennsylvania? Slide. And we need a check all the above energy policy. We got to exploit nuclear. You know, that's kind of been on hold since some nuclear accidents, but that's got to be looked at again. The biomass, again, wood. There's EPA regulations against stoves where you can't burn wood in your fireplace. Wind power, that's all over the northeast Pennsylvania, going up to Waymart down here on the Broad Mountain ridges. Geothermal power, solar power, and hydroelectric power. Now, the wind and the solar, they're being subsidized, and they're the most expensive of powers. But let's go back and look. Next slide would show some thoughts on new nuclear technology. And these have been dubbed the small modular reactors, or SMRs. They're about the size of a small strip mall. You locate them 100 feet underground, and they're safe. Potential safety and security is enhanced, and the cost they will pay for themselves many times over. That's a lower initial outlay. And one of the isotopes that's being looked at, very exciting, is something called thorium, not the plutonium or the uranium-235 that they're talking about in Iran, but thorium. And it's 4 times as abundant as the uranium. I'm going to show you the world distribution. Less nuclear waste, and again, limited weaponization potential, which would be very important in what's going on in the Middle East. And next slide shows an application of it. This was a prototype. It's a Cadillac, so you would like that, Sam. And it's was developed in 2009. And 8 grams of the thorium, radioactive thorium, would power that vehicle for 100 years. And 1 gram is equal to about 7,500 gallons of gasoline. So again, this is an energy future for all of us. But Sam, we got to think outside the box here. You know, we can't just be locked in. But let's just talk about thorium again. Again, India has great reserves. The United States and Australia, again, are 2 of our closest friends. And what's unique about thorium? Thorium, next slide, decays by a process that leads to an alpha particle. All the other ones do X-rays. And X-rays, if you've been down to visit our shop in New Philadelphia, to shield an X-ray, we need high-energy X-ray. We need 3 to 6 feet of concrete. Sam, the thorium alpha particle would be stopped by a piece of paper. So again, safety would be enhanced. And where are we going next, Sam? Okay, clean coal technology. That's what's important here in Northeast Pennsylvania. We are rich in carbon resources and jobs. How can we put our workforce back to productive pursuits?
Let's go back a little bit, and because to make it easier for the viewer here to understand, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure I'll get some emails, because it's getting closer to election now and there's more facts being presented. Regulations, Harry Reid in the Senate is regulating people to death, okay? When you look at the state of Pennsylvania, thankfully, in the last 6, 7 years since Corbett's been there, they've been able to help with some of the regulations, and they're working on that. And these are facts. See, people don't like to hear that if they don't like Corbett. They don't like to hear that if you like Reid, okay? So the point is, when you regulate what they're doing and destroying the progress, as you see with energy, how they're trying to make it look so they can get their own agendas, okay? John Rich, 1999, in the mid-90s, okay, had the solution. In the state of Pennsylvania, if they would have not done what they regulated him to death, okay, we would have the first coal to fuel plant in your district. Yes. You would have thousands of jobs, and guess what? Energy efficient, environmental friendly, okay? But politics plays an issue, and that's why people say, well, why is it? Why don't we have low energy cost? Who are the congressmen and senators who are voting all these ridiculous regulations?
Sam, what you said about the Rich project, again, it's been implemented around the world. It's not too late. That would be my message. It's not too late. But if we keep my Congressman, Matthew Cartwright, in, it's going to be one obstruction after another. I'm going to refer to some of the work that he has done, or some of his votes in the last year. But
see, that's the point. And here again, whether he probably has every reason why he did that, but how is it affecting your district? Folks, I'm talking to Doc Moylan, Dr. David Moylan. He is running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. Highly advised, folks, November 4th is very important. Why do we have high energy costs? Why are the jobs being there? What's happening with health care? People vote for that. These are people that you put in office. And they're all nice people. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to talk about facts. We'll be back right after this message. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. 24/7, ssptv.com, Every show we have there is on there. All the health shows, the political shows are all there. And my email is sam@ssptv.com. We're talking to no stranger to the show, Dr. Moylan, who sponsors the shows, and he's trying to present information and facts. This show is open to anyone. And once again, for those wacko liberals out there who don't like me, it's funny. I'm talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he's Democrat liberal, and as soon as I began to discuss something about Corbett, he got upset with me and says, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to have lunch with you anymore. I don't want to. He got up and now maybe he was just kidding with me, okay? Yeah. But I'm trying to say, is everyone 100% correct? No, but we're in a mess because we look at the Senate today, the U.S. Senate, and we look at what Harry Reid is doing, all right, and we see this disaster in the country. Obamacare is killing us. You talk to health people. They'll tell you. You're in it. You're a doctor. You see it every day. Yeah. Okay, until it affects somebody, until it affects that senior person, senior says, why am I concerned about pro-life? You should be concerned about pro-life because it's going to affect you, okay? But look, let's talk about facts now. What are some of the facts you have?
Well, and I would hope to be able to discuss this with Congressman Cartwright, but his voting record. The last time he ran, there was no voting record. Now there's a voting record. And of course, we'll be talking about the Affordable Care Act and other shows, but today focusing on the energy policy. And since last July, or last June, there have been 4 votes. And unfortunately, Matthew Cartwright came down with nays on all of them. And the first one from last July, about a year ago, the Coal Residue Reuse and Management Act. And basically it was saying, how do you safely handle the coal combustion residue, the ash? And again, that can be an environmental hazard, but this was a very responsible approach to it. Again, don't shut down the coal mines or the coal plants, but responsibly regulate them. He voted nay against that. The Energy Consumer Relief Act, and again, these titles, whoever dreams them up, it says it all, but it was calling for the EPA to provide, number one, a cost-benefit analysis of any final rule that they're going to promulgate. They also have to show how it's going to affect our energy prices, and finally, how it's going to affect the employment in an area before they can run roughshod over it. And he voted against that. Just kind of common sense to me. But the next one had to do with getting congressional approval before a tax on carbon, or cap and trade as they call it, is promulgated. 2 years ago, Australia put on a tax on carbon. It was like $28 per ton of carbon that you were producing. And they just voted to get rid of it. It was strangling their economy. The price of oil the price of electricity had doubled. So why do we need to go down that road when other countries are repudiating it from experience? And finally, and this title again says it all, Lowering Gasoline Prices to Fuel an America That Works Act of 2014. He voted against that. It has to do with drilling off the continental shelf.
So are you trying to tell me, from what I'm looking at here, and these are facts, I guess, and if Matt comes on the show, maybe he can explain them, but according to, when you're looking at the district you're in, this affects 80% of your district.
This is our potentially, coal is no longer king, but if we could at least make it a prince, maybe we would be able to help with the economy and the unemployment. But I do have some slides to just look at Pennsylvania coal. And the next one, and after that. These are facts updated recently. We talked about them in the past. But in 2013, there were 49,000 direct and indirect votes. What do I mean by that? Well, the direct is you're in the strippings. Jobs. You're down in the pits. And there's still about 37 or so underground mines in the state of Pennsylvania. And the payroll is in the billions, 2.2 billion. And for each job in the mines, there's about 3.7 indirect jobs. Somebody's got to repair that Euclid, you know? And this is an important part of our economy. And it's estimated that there's 27 billion tons of coal reserves in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania out of about 450 in our nation. Sam, that's 250 years, and the stuff that's in the ground in the Middle East is only 200 years.
Congressman Barletta has been stating that for years, okay, about the fact that we're sitting on gold mines here, and we have the energy, we have everything, and it's regulation after regulation after regulation. If you, and when, whatever, as a congressman, what would you be doing for your district?
I'm going to try to pull this off, where, with my MIT background, we have to think outside the box. We have to utilize the latest technology. Can I show you a couple more slides?
Go right ahead.
Next slide is, and again, slide. This is why anthracite is so great. 98% pure carbon. And again, it's used for metallurgy also. It's so pure versus the bituminous, which is more sedimentary rock. It has a lot of BTUs compared with bituminous, and it's low sulfur. Again, that was the pollution from years ago, the sulfur dioxides that we get into the air and smell everything up. But now I'm going to repudiate the fact, the claim that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. It's not a pollutant. It's a plant food. Next slide. This I'm showing because, I'm the history buff. But this was the raid on Po Este, which was in Romania during World War II. This was 1943. And they were B-24s, and they came in at treetop level to bomb those oil refineries that the Germans had there, treetop level. 60 planes went down, 700 men. 5 Congressional Medals of Honor were awarded. But anyway, the Germans thought twice of how are we going to continue this war? How are we going to prosecute this war without oil from Romania? So what they did, next slide, they turned to the Ruhr Valley in Germany, where they were rich in coal the way we are. And they came up with technology. Then the technology would take the coal and liquefy it. Several ways of doing it. One, you can take the coal and make it into methanol and use catalysts, and it's called the Fischer-Tropsch process.
Yes.
And you can make it into an ultra-clean fuel. Next slide. And you take actually carbon monoxide and hydrogen, you make it into...
That's John Rich's,
Okay.
There it is. That's what, you said something, you've got 2 minutes. When when we started having problems in Iraq, you saw the oil prices go to the roof. We are dependent on whatever, and so what happens, the Americans start paying more. So that discretionary income, if you were paying $3.59 or $3.25, which is ridiculous, and it went up to $4 and it went to $1, there it is. That's what affects our an economy. We're sitting on the energy, and for some reason, we're being regulated to death.
Well, Sam, President Obama's first energy chief, Department of Energy, was Stephen Chu. His solution to the problem was more conservation by going to European-level gasoline prices, $8, $9 a gallon. I couldn't afford to fill up my car. I'd be walking, which would probably be good for my weight program.
The blue-collar worker is getting crippled. They're getting smashed because we're letting people regulate us to death. You got 1 minute left.
Can I show one more slide?
One more slide.
Again, let's pursue the technology card. Next slide. And coal to liquid fuels via methanol. That's wood alcohol, basically.
Yep.
There is a plant out in Medicine Bow, Wyoming. And the name of that county is Carbon County, okay? We have a Carbon County here in the 17th District. But basically, again, making a very clean fuel and working well out in Wyoming. In fact, Sam, why don't we go out to Jackson Hole and maybe do a site visit out there? But the technology is there. You can even take coal and make a slurry out of it and burn that. So,
the question I want to ask you, Dr. Moylan, is this. Do you feel that Mr. Cartwright is in sync with the 17th District? Do you feel he's doing what he should be doing for the 17th District?
He is in sync with President Barack Hussein Obama, voting with him 96% of the time, not 100%, 96%. The former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she's only voting 95% with the president. So no, I don't think he's in sync with our people here in the 17th.
You want to learn more about Dr. Moylan, folks? Through a series of these shows, you're learning something. Dr. Moylan, docmoylan.com. There it is up on the screen. Learn as much as you can about him. Learn as much as you can about Cartwright. Cartwright has a record. Doctor has a record as a Schuylkill County coroner. But the point is, when they say they're going to do things to help people, see if their record shows that. We'll see you next time.